Hi everybody and welcome to Blendline TV, where this week we have highlights from the 2014 Australian Swift Racing Series. The guys travelling their way around the country, starting the year at Bathurst with round one. A great field of Swifts crossing the top of the mountain there. You can see Gus Robbins was leading the way early from Andrew Price and Alan Jarvis, who was putting all sorts of pressure over the rear of Scott Gore, as they came down the straight, down Conrod Straight into the chase, and he made the move stick. Plenty of great racing from these guys. You'll see a lot of it throughout the show. And just look at this. Gore immediately thought, I can come back on this and take the position. But Jarvis held out. It was Jarvis who was the man on a charge, though. Across the top of the mountain, he was making huge amounts of time. And then on the final lap, Gus Robbins gets it all wrong out of the dipper. And just look at the impact there on the walls. He got both of them on the exit of the dipper. So not a great way for the young bloke to finish his first race of the season. But that allowed Alan Jarvis to continue this remarkable charge, coming from fourth in the field all the way to first on the final lap. Started the final lap in third, finished it in first. Andrew Price did not want to give anything away, but unfortunately he would not get back past in the drag race to the line. So it was Alan Jarvis who took out the first race of the weekend and the first race of the season. You can see him there ecstatic with that one. So it was Alan Jarvis leading home Andrew Price, Callan Sayers, Stuart Ross French and Hadrian Morale in the first race of the year. Race 2, and it was another sprint race at Mount Panorama. Gus Robbins not coming out for this one after damaging the car way too badly in that accident that we saw in race 1. You can see that the field was absolutely condensed together. The guys racing really hard. You got Hadrian Morale in there with Andrew Price and Alan Jarvis. These guys were just pushing each other around the track. You can see there Price all the way up the back of Morale as they came down into the final corner. Price managed to make the move around the outside. Some great racing. Price was on a charge after not getting away well in the early stages. You can see here French and following Gore across the top of the mountain. These two had a great battle as well, putting it all on the line, trying to get past each other. I think one of the things to remember with the Swift racing is anybody can pass at any time. And you can see here French got his charge on, got past Gore, and then charged past Morale as well down into the chase. He was really flying and pushing hard. It was good to see him getting some great laps in that blue Suzuki Swift. Andrew Price then started putting the pressure on Callan Sayers. Callan Sayers looking to have a good year. He's putting a lot into his Swift racing this year, and he's really coming on strong, but not enough for Price, who managed to go round the outside here. You can see trying to hold the inside down into the chase. Sayers cuts him off, but then runs a little bit wide, which has given Price the run down into the final corner, and Price would try to the outside and then move to the inside, having a look everywhere. Just look at this pressure motor racing from these guys, eventually managing to get up the inside as Sayers put it all on the grass, and with a lap to go he took second place, and that's where the positions would stay. Alan Jarvis leading home Andrew Price, Callan Sayers, Stuart Ross French and Hadrian Morale rounding out the top 5 yet again. Race 3 for the weekend, and this one was an hour enduro, so a lot more for the guys to think about. You've got to start to try to find a rhythm, which is not something these Swifts always want to do. Just look at the way they're using all the road and a bit more wherever they can. This freight train at the front was inseparable for the first half of the race. You had Price, Sayers, Jarvis and also French there tacking onto the rear. He was in 4th place and just really probably had the best spot. The watching brief on all of them. Gore and Morale starting to fall by the wayside a little bit. They were holding each other up in their own battle as well. Just listen to the tyres squeal down through Forest Elbow. These guys really pushing hard, and then you get this freight train effect down Conrod Straight. This is probably some of the most exciting Swift racing you'll see. These guys bump drafting down the straight. You can see here Jarvis trying to get onto the back of the easy skin car of Price. He was doing everything he could before eventually pulling off to do a compulsory pit stop. Something new for the Swifts this year. A few endurance races with compulsory pit stops, which meant the driver had to come in. Different races meant they had to do different things. At this one, it was a wheel change, and the driver just had to sit in there and wait for it to happen. If they needed some water or something, there was an opportunity there for it to be chucked in the window. And you can see that really separated the guys out at Bathurst. It enabled some people like Morale to put in some really quick laps. He was finding his way in that car and doing really well. And then there was this bloke, Gus Robbins. Unfortunate for him, that accident which we saw in race 1 coming down to this section of road here. It was on the exit of the dipper and he just collected the outside wall, which fired him across into the inside wall under the Firestone sign there. A very simple mistake to make, but unfortunately that meant for Gus Robbins that he just ended up falling a long way behind the rest of the field, just trying to nurse a damaged car home and collect the points. The points are what it's all about here for the Australian Swift Racing Series. It's a long season. There's many rounds and you can really just, well, you get to drop your worst 2 rounds as well. So you can really just try to nurse your way through a bad round, pocket the points in case you need them later, but you can always drop them if the time comes. During to the late stages of the race, and it was Alan Jarvis who was on a charge again, like in race 1. He was really pushing hard. You can see him here all over the back of Gore, fighting for 4th place in the race at this stage, and he was just trying to get past the Black Swift wherever he could. Gore in the Scott Gore racing car doing everything he could to try to hold Jarvis behind in the Achilles Radials car, but Jarvis was showing great speed, and on his way up the mountain he managed to push his way past. And it was Jarvis who had all the momentum. He would keep charging towards the end, something that everybody was going to have to watch out for in this series because, of course, he's already got 2 race wins to his name. That remarkable race win in the first race of the year. The second race went to him a bit easier, and then in this one he was trying to chase down Andrew Price and Callan Sayers. Now, Price had built himself a very comfortable lead. Here he is coming down the mountain. He just runs smooth and consistently, had a clean pit stop and got away. And the thing in these Swifts is, if you can get away from the pack, you can build yourself a very comfortable lead to be able to not be drafted down the long straight, and you can continue working your way away. And that's exactly what Price did. A bit of out of sight, out of mind. But on the final lap, it all came together for Jarvis and Sayers. Jarvis doing everything he could. He was pushing so hard to try to get past Sayers. Sayers, though, he was doing really well. You can see here Jarvis to the outside, which became the inside down into the chase. The guys going side by side. Jarvis taking the position away, and Sayers was left to rue what could have been until he managed to get past him on the run down to the last turn as well. So it ended up being Andrew Price leading home Callan Sayers, Alan Jarvis, Scott Gore, Hadrian Morale, Stuart Ross French, Robert Jarvis and Gus Robbins. Taking a look at the championship point score after the first round, and you can see that courtesy of his victories, Alan Jarvis has a comfortable lead over Andrew Price on 103 points. Callan Sayers sitting in third on 95. We'll be back after the break with more Swift racing on Blendline TV. Welcome back to our year in review for the 2014 Australian Swift Racing Series, and round 3 saw the guys head to Sydney Motorsport Park to contest the next round with the production touring cars, and you can just see it was an action-packed start to the first race of the weekend. Look at this on board with Callan Sayers. You can see the car in front getting loose, and whompa! Huge accident. That unfortunately would red flag the race and finish it where it was, so that handed the position to Andrew Price. Rob Jarvis in second, Callan Sayers third, Jamie Little fourth, and Amar Sharma rounding out the top 5. Race 2 for the weekend, and it was rainy conditions out on track, really slippery, and you can see here that gave the Swifts the opportunity to monster some of the bigger V8 cars. Unfortunately, again, yellow flags would plague this one, with Sharma finding his way into the wall in the early stages. The race would end pretty quickly with Callan Sayers leading home Jamie Little, Alfie Sinisi, Amar Sharma and Andrew Price rounding out the top 5. Race 3, and we were back to dry conditions with Callan Sayers breaking away from the field, leaving Jarvis, Sinisi, Little and Sharma to battle it out. All 4 of the Swifts were just all over each other every corner. There was a VP Commodore getting in the way a little bit there from the production touring cars. And you can see Sharma unfortunately had to run a little bit wide before Little had a big one off at the exit of turn 1 at Sydney Motorsport Park. He would take no further part in this race and return to pit lane. Sharma unfortunately also retiring from this one with a few mechanical dramas. Sinisi was trying to put as much pressure on Jarvis as he possibly could, but it was nobody able to stop Callan Sayers. He was flying, posting the best lap of the weekend with a 1 minute 57.6, incredibly quick compared to everybody else out there, and he would come home for a comfortable victory in the third race of the weekend. So there you have it. It was Callan Sayers leading home, Rod Jarvis, Alfie Sinisi, Jamie Little and Amar Sharma rounding out the top 5. So after 3 rounds of the series, the point score looks like this. Callan Sayers leading Andrew Price, 331 plays 237. Alan Jarvis sitting in third on 220 points. As we move into the next phase of the championship, going up to Morgan Park. For round 6, the championship headed to Queensland's Morgan Park for their second visit, and you can see here the tight twisty confines and then the long back straight section was really making some interesting racing for the guys. It was Robbins, Jarvis and Sayers up front battling it out though, these 3 becoming the usual suspects in the category. Jarvis trying to look for a championship title, I guess all of them really looking for a championship title, but Robbins and Sayers, the 2 young blokes, really coming on strong and making life difficult for everybody else. Sayers was trying to get away in the early stages, but Gus Robbins would chase him down and take home 4 race victories from all 4 races. So it was the beginning of Gus Robbins' championship charge after those unfortunate issues in round 1. He'd missed round 3, so lost out on a little bit of points, but made all them up and a little bit more here at Morgan Park. So it was a great round for Gus Robbins, leading home Jarvis and Sayers rounding out the top 3. So the point score after that round looked like Callan Sayers leading on 640, Alan Jarvis second on 519 and Gus Robbins third on 458. It was really starting to tighten up at the top. We'll have the run to the end of the season after the break on Blendline TV. Welcome back to the Australian Swift Racing Series on Blendline TV. Season's highlights coming to you now, and we've got round 7 from Sydney Motorsport Park, where the Swifts yet again had another enduro. And you can see here it was Little and Jarvis battling it out for 4th position in the race. The guys really putting on a great show. There were plenty of battles happening throughout the field, heaps going on, and an hour enduro. It was really hard for the guys just to nurse these cars around. Of course, it was also incredibly hot out there. And you can see here Gus Robbins and Callan Sayers having a great battle early on. Robbins managing to get past Sayers to take the lead of the race as it stood then. He was comfortably out in front coming into the pit stop area, and you can see here how he was just starting to pull away. Robbins really starting to develop in one of these cars and becoming a force to contend with after his great results at Morgan Park the round before. Alan Jarvis then started putting the pressure on Sayers, and you can see the 2 guys running nose to tail around a lot of the course. Robbins looking in his rear view mirror, really rubbing his hands together, and Robert Jarvis just behind in the red Swift, hoping that these 2 would fall back towards him, which they did actually start doing as they continued to battle. Just look how close they are to each other, around and around, lap after lap. They were side by side, neck and neck, bump drafting down the straight. It was all on, and Jarvis making the move here down into turn 2. He'd get it done, passing Sayers, so that was 2nd place in the race, and he would start to make his way out to try to catch this man in front, Gus Robbins. Robbins there with a little bit of panel damage on the front and the rear. That's standard in Swift racing. You can see the guys really, they kind of rub each other a fair bit. And then into the pits came Gus Robbins. This gives you an idea of what happens in the race. They come in, they have to jump out, get back in, and get going again. So that really added about 2 minutes to the race time, and Gus Robbins did a pretty good stop. Lost a little bit of ground to a few of his competitors, most notably Alan Jarvis, who would come out in the lead. That's Rob Jarvis there in the red Brandy's car. He'd start having a battle with Callan Sayers in the late stages of the race. Those guys battling for 3rd place. So everybody really had paired off by the late stages. You had Sayers and Jarvis versing each other, and also Jarvis and Robbins up against each other. Callan Sayers was pushing as hard as he could to try to get past Rob Jarvis, who was really acting like a massive roadblock. Both of them going the same speed. They were pushing each other pretty hard, but Jarvis just knew how to position the car to make it as difficult as possible for Sayers, and unfortunately Sayers got past, but that battle would continue. Little behind was trying to make ground on them both. He was finding some speed in that car and doing really well in the late stages, probably pushing a little bit too hard around the final corner there, you can see, but he was starting to make up ground on Rob Jarvis, and that was meaning he was having to look in his rear view mirror as he tried to attack Sayers in front as well. But attack he did, and he did it effectively. You can see here he managed to get past Sayers, a great move up the inside at 3, and he would hold on to the finish line with that position as Sayers was unable to really do anything about it into the final stages. The Brandy's restaurant car leading home Coconut Resort, Callan Sayers, and it was good to see Callan starting to get some different sponsors on board as well. We'd said earlier in this episode, he's worked a lot on his Swift racing this year. He's worked really hard at it, and it's good to see him getting some results. Still leading the championship, probably not having the pace of Alan Jarvis and Gus Robbins this round, but it looked like he may well be able to continue on for a championship victory. You can see here he was trying to get that third place back from Rob Jarvis. The guys pushing as hard as they could. He'd get back in front, and then Rob Jarvis would pass again. And then in the final stages, this battle for the lead really came together. Gus Robbins put his head down. He was all over the back of Alan Jarvis in the Achilles Radials cars. The Brooks Suzuki car starting to make some ground, and you can see here throughout the back of the circuit, look how close he gets. These two practically touching all the way around the back of the circuit. Robbins maybe with a little bit more pace down the straights and through some of the tighter stuff than Jarvis, who looked like he had his car set up to slide nicely, especially through this back section of 4 and 5. Unfortunately for Robbins, he would push as hard as he possibly could, but would not be rewarded. There would be no pass for the lead, just holding on and trying to force the mistake from Jarvis, which ultimately would never come. Robbins here, you can see, making a lunge down into the hairpin, a little bit of a touch. Jarvis having to move a little bit wide. Those guys running side by side down into the final complex, but Robbins, as I said, unable to make the move stick. He found himself on the wrong side for that final complex and would have to sit in behind and follow down across the finish line for the final time. So Alan Jarvis taking a well-deserved victory. Again, another one for the year to add to his tally, and that would help his championship as these two guys tried to chase down Callan Sayers. So Alan Jarvis managing to hold on to the line despite a valiant effort from Gus Robbins. At the end of the day, you had Alan Jarvis leading home, Gus Robbins, Robert Jarvis, Callan Sayers and Jamie Little in 5th place. So at the end of 7 rounds, the championship point score looks like this. Callan Sayers leading Alan Jarvis 733, place 632, and Gus Robbins sitting in 3rd with 567 points. It's really starting to tighten up at the top. After the race, I caught up with Alan Jarvis, our race victor, and Gus Robbins, 2nd place, to get their thoughts on racing in the Swift Series. Taking it out for the Swifts was Alan Jarvis. Alan, you were in a race-long battle there with Gus Robbins, managed to get up in the end. Must have been pretty happy to take the victory.
Mate, I'm absolutely stoked. It was a tough race, got out exhausted. But yeah, Gus fought pretty hard all race. It was, an hour-long sprint race basically, other than that safety car. But we sort of had a bit of luck with that in the pit stop, and it got us the lead. We're stoked.
Now, there was a lot of bumping and drafting between the two of you. How does it feel coming down into turn 1 and trying to pull out there and take the move?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a little scary, You put it into turn 1, we only sort of just make it through there at top speed. So, yeah, it's a little hairy through there. You're sort of a bit sideways and on the edge of your seat, but a lot of fun.
Now, you mentioned before the pit stop, that was something new for you guys. How was it to jump out of the car and have to jump back in?
Yeah, it's a different experience, It just adds to the race. It adds a little bit more excitement. We understand why they do it. So, yeah, we enjoy it. It changes it up a little bit.
Now, you've got a couple of rounds left to go this year. You're still in with a shot of the title. What's the plan into those rounds?
Win.
Well, that's a very good plan. Hopefully it comes together well for you. I mean, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that help you get out racing. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Mate, big thank you to Achilles Radials Australia. Conrad and the guys, they helped me out so much this year and the last couple of years. They've been a good supporter to me. Mum and Dad, of course, all their help. My wife, Tara. Other sponsors, Brandy's Restaurant, and Autobarn Lismore.
Well, hopefully the rest of the season goes well for you, and we look forward to seeing you on the top step again.
Thanks, mate.
There you go, Alan Jarvis coming out on top this weekend for the Swifts. Look out for him to make a charge as we go into the back part of the season. Gus Robbins, 2nd on the day, led most of the day as well before that pit stop window. Great battle out there between you guys, and especially with Alan Jarvis.
Yeah, me and Alan always have a great battle. Had a good lead at the start. Unfortunately, got buggered around a bit with the safety car and a few cars, but racing's racing. I'm happy to finish 2nd. It's been a great weekend. Congrats to Alan on the win. It was a great fight in the end. Really enjoyed it.
Now, we spoke about the heat before on the dummy grid. How was it actually out there in the car once you got in the rhythm?
It was hot.
Yeah.
Luckily I had some Powerade in the car just to keep the electrolytes up. But the heat was very intense. Luckily on the safety car, put the windows down, just, cool down a bit, but then as soon as put the windows up, it's just like a fireball in there. It's crazy.
Well, congratulations. Anyone you'd like to thank behind the scenes for getting you out there?
I'd like to thank my old man who's sitting back at home, unfortunately. Mick White, Daniel Bond, who's been great, he's been working on the car all weekend. Big thank you to Brooks Suzuki, who've been sponsoring me all year. Also, PAS, Bendigo Tyre Centre, and of course, CCMW.
Well, good luck for the rest of the year. Hopefully it goes well. There you go, Gus Robbins, second place today at Sydney Motorsport Park. And I tell you what, didn't Gus Robbins push in those final 2 rounds down at Winton and then back at Wakefield Park? He managed to leapfrog Callan Sayers, dropping their worst 2 rounds. Gus Robbins came out on top, 660 points in a heartbreaker for Callan Sayers, 654 for second place. Alan Jarvis managed to hold on for third with 634 points. A great season from the Australian Swift Series. You can find them again in 2015 all around Australia. They'll be travelling around to many events, so keep an eye out on your track or visit their website www.swiftseries.com.au to find out more. Until then, I'm Daniel Beckinsale. We hope you've enjoyed this season review for the Australian Swifts, and we look forward to your company next time. Bye for now.